Hello and welcome to my kitchen. I'm Judith, and today I'm going to do stuffed peppers. Generally, we would do these in sweet bell peppers, but this time of year, my grocery store brings in some beautiful peppers, a huge variety, and I have some Hungarian peppers. They're sweet, and they have a slightly different flavor than bell peppers, and I prefer them. Believe me, especially for something like this. They're not as strong flavored as, say, a green bell pepper. And the flesh is a bit thinner. So I think they do wonderful for stuffed pepper. So we have the Hungarian peppers. I have a Serrano pepper for a little bit of heat. I'm not going to use the whole thing. Some rice, garlic, onion, sweet paprika, of course some ground pork, and an egg, and the sauce will be tomato. So I have some strained tomatoes, which we're probably going to have to thin with some water. And then once it's all cooked, we will be adding a roux to thicken it back up. So let me get started. I have to chop the onion because we need to saute the onions and then add the paprika to that. So now we're going to saute our onions. So I'm just going to put a tablespoon or so of oil into the pan, and I use avocado oil, but use whichever oil you prefer. I would stick with the vegetable oil though. You don't want something really strong flavored. There are going to be lots of strong flavors in this dish when we're done. Now I add the finely chopped onions, and I have about a cup and a quarter or so. So that was 2 smallish onions, and I'm just using yellow cooking onions. Spanish onions would work. White onions. Whatever you happen to have on hand will work. Although I've never tried this with a red onion. And we're going to add just a pinch of salt. That does help soften the onions and get them to release their liquids. So now we just want to cook these until they're translucent. We don't want to brown them. So that will take a few minutes. Meanwhile, I will prepare my peppers. For the peppers, all you need to do is cut the top off and remove the core. Pull out any seeds that are in there, and the ribs. Now, normally, if we're doing a stuffed pepper, you're going to put them upright in the pan and keep the top and put it on top. Well, these ones obviously are not going to stand upright in a pan, so they will be laying down, and we aren't going to keep the top. I mean, you could keep the top and cut it up and put it in salad or in a different dish. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that they roast or boil or otherwise cook their bell peppers before they stuff them, and I do that. I usually boil mine or steam them, but still, I'm not a huge fan of stuffed bell peppers. I like the stuffing. It's the pepper part. It's just too much of it. Now, once your onions are translucent, we are going to take half of them out of this pan and put them in a bowl. Because we want to add paprika. We're going to add sweet paprika. And I'm going to start with 1 level teaspoon. And stir that in. The aim we're going for is to turn the onions a beautiful red. And it's sweet paprika, so you don't have to worry about the heat so much. Oopsie. Yeah, I think I'll go with maybe another third of a teaspoon. And this is going to be mixed into our ground pork. We do want a beautiful red. So I think we're good there. We're going to set that aside and let it cool. And in the meantime, I think we'll start making our tomato sauce. You could use tomato juice for this, or tomato puree, in which case you would have to thin it. While we wait for this to come to a boil, which yes, we do have to increase the heat under it, we will stuff our peppers. So our mixture for the peppers is ground pork, which I have 630 grams, but I have slightly over a pound, which is going to be probably more than enough. Let's just mix it in, and we're going to add our finely chopped garlic. Oopsie. And 1/3 cup of rice. 1 egg. And our onion and paprika mixture. And if you want to add some heat, it's up to you whether you add it to the meat or to the sauce. I think I'm going to add it to the sauce, not the meat. So now we're just going to mix this all together. Okay. Make sure it's well and evenly distributed. And then we're going to add some salt and pepper. So basically salt and pepper to taste. So I'm doing about half a teaspoon of black pepper, ground black pepper. And I'm not a huge fan of salt. So we're just going with a good pinch. Because salt does make things better. I just don't like things that are really salty. A good mix again. Okay. Oh, I can hear our tomato sauce starting to bubble. So now we're just going to stuff spoonfuls into our peppers. And you don't want to pack it too tight because the rice will expand. I'll continue that while I go and check on. As I said, you can put the hot pepper, or in my case, warm pepper. Most people wouldn't call a Serrano that hot, into either the meat or the sauce. I'm going to put it into the sauce. Or you can actually use a spicy pepper. Okay, that's about a half, well, small half of the Serrano pepper I had, and it's been deseeded and deveined. So I'm going to turn the heat down on that, and we will add our stuffed peppers. So just lay your stuffed peppers into the pan on top of the tomato sauce, and if you have extra meat left over, wet your hands and form it into meatballs. And you do want to make pretty good sized meatballs, because if you make them too small, they will disintegrate during the cooking time. Then we're going to cover the pan, lid here, And this will take 50 minutes to cook. So you want to keep it simmering. But if you get it at too high of a simmer, you're going to dry out your sauce and things will burn. So don't forget to check it every now and then. While our peppers are cooking, we need to make a roux. And I know I've done roux in a few other videos, but this is a little bit different. This is a roux that's more like one you would make for gumbo, not one you would make for like a white sauce or a cheese sauce. 4 tablespoons of oil. And you do want to heat the oil up more than you would the butter, because the oil isn't going to brown as quickly as butter. So we'll set it like on a very low medium and wait for it to get hot. When your oil gets hot, and you don't want it too hot, otherwise you throw the flour in and it's going to explode. So the way to check is take a little pinch of flour, sprinkle it in, and it should bubble a little bit. So that's 4 tablespoons of oil, and I have 3 tablespoons of flour, which we're going to put in. And this we want to stir continuously. Just put it in a little bit at a time. And just keep stirring. Can you see that bubbling in there? It is beautiful. So just keep stirring and letting it bubble. And this will take a few minutes, but you can't stop stirring. Like I said, it's similar to the way you make a roux for gumbo, which means half an hour of stirring while things brown and get wonderful and nutty flavored. This, we don't have to do that long, fortunately. But you do have to keep it moving, or it will burn. And we don't want it burned. At this point, I think we can turn the heat down a little, because I just had it up to get the oil hot enough. I'd rather have the heat down and do it longer than have the heat up and risk burning it. Raise the temperature on the roux just because I want it to speed up a little bit here, but I'm going to have to be very careful and stir like crazy and keep my eye on it. This is not one you can walk away from. Really just waiting for the roux to start bubbling. It's kind of laying there doing not much of anything except getting some color. So I want it to bubble to make sure that it's cooked. Because there's nothing worse than putting raw flour into your sauce and hoping that it's going to turn out okay. It won't. You need that flour to be cooked. And in the case of this kind of roux, the darker it gets, the more flavor it has. It goes nutty and beautiful. Right, the tomato sauce is starting to bubble, and my roux is nice and brown. And pour some in. And we're going to let this cook until it's thickened a little bit. So you don't want the heat too high. Once you get it up to a simmer, You want to turn the heat down because the roux will thicken and seize it up. If you've got the temperature too high, it's going to it's going to burn. Ooh, that definitely changed the flavor a lot. Oh, it's now more, I don't know, brown, earthy. I don't know how to describe it, but it is a much different flavor than the sharp tomato flavor. It is wonderful. So we're going to let that thicken, and then we're going to add our peppers back. Once your sauce is thickened, just make sure you've got it on a low heat. Return your peppers to the pan with the sauce and cover them and let them rewarm. Now you can turn the heat up a bit, depends on how long it is going to be before dinner, but you do want them warm. So this is stuffed Hungarian peppers. A little different than your average stuffed bell peppers. A Hungarian pepper has thinner flesh than a bell pepper, so I much prefer it. So you're not getting an enormous amount of pepper. And extra, you can always turn into a meatball to serve beside it. And that is delicious. So let's try the pepper. That is so pretty. And yeah, I knew I wasn't getting them right to the end, but that's okay. There is plenty of meat in there. Oh, that is so good. The peppers have a lovely flavor. The flesh is not so thick that you feel overwhelmed by that. And of course, serve it with some nice boiled potatoes to mash into that tomato sauce. Absolutely delicious. I thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please try the recipe, it's great. And I know Hungarian peppers aren't available year-round, but it's a nice change from bell peppers. Please give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate everyone who watches, and I thank you so very much. I will be back soon with another video.